Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. If this is your first time here, my name is Amparo and today we are going to be talking about microaggressions. I don't know why I'm happy saying that. Microaggressions are terrible. No one should be allowed to say them or do anything that involves a microaggression. But what is a microaggression and why are we talking about them today? Well, here's a bit of a definition for you. Comment or action that subtly and often unconsciously or unintentionally expresses a prejudiced attitude toward a member of a marginalized community. And there's where we're going. That's exactly the opening scene of this entire episode. Speaking of marginalized groups or racial minorities, this leads me to BIPOC authors within the children's book world. Or kidlit, as some of you call it. But Amparo, white authors get bad reviews too. Yes, they do. Specifically, when we're talking about BIPOC authors, I wanted to highlight something that I've been noticing when it comes to how their books are reviewed. And I'm not just talking about book bloggers, bookstagrammers, or booktubers. Of course, there are some huge problems there as well. But just remember, there are trade reviews, journals, professional reviewers who get paid to talk about books, unlike most bookstagrammers, booktubers, and book bloggers. These professional reviewers or other reviewers that use microaggressions in their reviews, or as they call them, their critique, there's a difference between actually writing a critique of a work and being racist. The problem is, as Merriam-Webster just showed to us, sometimes these microaggressions are unintentional or unconsciously given and provided. Specifically when it comes to negative reviews of BIPOC work, it's disappointing. For the record, when we're talking about BIPOC authors or BIPOC content creators, but specifically for this episode, BIPOC authors, we're referring to Black, Indigenous, people of color. Today, we're going to be examining the top 5 microaggressions in negative reviews aimed at BIPOC authors. Amparo, there are more than 5 microaggressions. Yes, there are, but I'm only focusing on the most common and to some extent the most annoying. But Amparo, you shouldn't be looking at reviews of any kind, whether they're good or bad. You shouldn't be looking at reviews. Here's the thing. I, unlike a lot of other authors, and I don't know what this says about me, maybe it's, confirming the fact that I don't have a soul, I don't really get hurt by negative reviews or, I don't feel bad. If you criticize my work, I come from the understanding or have the understanding that that is your right. You shouldn't like my book just because I wrote it. Yes. But if you're racist, I do get mad. And also, there's this lovely phenomenon that not only I have been subjected to, but other authors, BIPOC authors that are both friends of mine or just colleagues in general, getting tagged in a negative review. Why? But Amparo, white authors also get tagged in negative reviews. Yes, they do get tagged in negative reviews all the time. And yes, it is offensive and it is wrong. Reviews are for readers, not for authors. However, a white author's work won't necessarily be subjected to the same criticism or criticized through the same lens as the work of a BIPOC author will. So let's kick things off with microaggression number 5. This one is provided by Adriana Martinez, who is at Boricua Reads on Twitter, and you should follow them immediately. They will change your life. This book is a ripoff of insert super popular YA book here. Whenever this specific microaggression pops up, I'm immediately transported to thinking about Leigh Bardugo's Six of Crows. I have read Six of Crows. I think it's a phenomenal book, and I definitely think that Leigh Bardugo is a talented writer. An author who happens to be BIPOC, creating these worlds or writing a heist book set in a fantasy world, isn't ripping off Leigh Bardugo. I'm very sure, I'm certain that other authors, other readers, other reviewers can easily find older sources, literary texts, or tropes, or anything really related to literature that Leigh Bardugo was inspired by, right? And that's the problem. A white author can be inspired by, but a BIPOC author is copying. This is problematic language because it frames the BIPOC author's work as unoriginal and lazy. Literally, their book can contain even more intricate world building or better plotting, and it will still be considered a poor imitation or a poor attempt at being like the whites. Also, something that I've noticed is this resistance into accepting that BIPOC's work as canon. Reviewers will literally insert the same super popular book, even the rooster is mad. Reviewers will literally insert the same super popular book in every category imaginable, sometimes even mislabeling it. The rooster really hates it. And they will say nothing about the BIPOC's book that is similar to that super popular book. It's like the book that a BIPOC wrote doesn't exist. I call this the "I pretend I do not see it" trend. If you look away long enough, maybe the book will disappear. I don't understand what you're trying to do here. Or the opposite happens, right? Where the book from a BIPOC creator is literally everywhere, topping best of lists, becoming a bestseller even, getting starred reviews. And these reviewers, the racist ones, will be like, how? How is that possible? How are you benching my favorite book of all time to put that one into the place where the popular one is supposed to be? They just cry incessantly about their fave not being considered all the time and taking up space that might not even belong to them in the first place. To these reviewers, don't worry, you can always schedule your next crying session on your Notion page. Microaggression number 4. This one comes courtesy of author Christina Soontornvat. The world was confusing to me. This specific microaggression brings up cultural heritage, customs, traditions pertaining to a specific BIPOC author's personal life. These discussions about cultural heritage, customs, and traditions kind of lead to the assumption that, or not kind of, they lead to the assumption that all of that is supposed to be spoon-fed to readers. Sometimes these customs or traditions or lived experiences are glossed over. They're not even delved into that deeply, and it's not because of pacing issues. It's simply a fear or this inherently racist but covered up as apprehension that no one is going to understand. But here's the thing. You're not actually trying to understand the content. You are demanding that the content personally cater to your ignorance. It's like telling a BIPOC author if they want to be successful, they have to cater to the white gaze. Or telling them, if I don't understand this, it has no value. Or even worse, I don't care about your culture. Mine is more important to me, so you have to make me care about yours. And yet readers from marginalized communities have spent their entire lives reading about these mostly white worlds and these white characters going off on adventures and doing things that may or may not be logical or coherent to them. If I don't understand what a specific, obscure scientific term means in a scene, then it's because I'm not smart enough, not because the writer isn't talented enough. But if a white reader doesn't understand why Puerto Rico competes as a separate nation in the Blaze Wrath World Cup, then I have failed because I didn't educate them properly. Because yes, as a Puerto Rican author, my sole purpose is to educate the United States about their own history. BIPOC authors may have encyclopedic knowledge about their lives, their personal experiences, their cultural heritage. But that does not make them your search engine of choice. BIPOC authors are not a 5-week class on Coursera that you're taking for free because you don't want to pay for that pretty little certificate at the end. Some readers choose books because they want to escape. Books equals escapism, and that's great. However, if you're entering a world that feels foreign to you, ask yourself, why is it foreign in a way that puts me off and doesn't motivate me to engage with the content further? Why is this challenging for me? Why is it just not interesting enough? And why am I so confused? Why do I have so many questions? 9 out of 10 times, the answer is racism. Microaggression number 3. This one comes courtesy of Dr. Sayantani Dasgupta, also a children's author, and it's the following. I couldn't relate to the main character. Again, catering to the white gaze is seen as crucial for these reviewers, but when it comes to calling characters unrelatable, you're taking it up a notch. Questioning or challenging a character's authenticity is not the problem in itself. This is often the case when a non-black author writes about a black narrator. Authenticity can be challenged there because they're writing from a perspective that they have no experience with. And also, they're taking up someone else's space. There's a lack of first-hand experience that limits how characters are crafted and subsequently presented on the page. Also, if a character is an archer, for example, and their technique is so not how anyone shoots an arrow, really, you can question why that character fails at being a proper archer, or the correct type of archery was not applied in this example. I couldn't relate to this archer because they don't know how to shoot an arrow. Not really. I couldn't relate to this character because they don't know how to bake. I bake better, and what? However, saying that a BIPOC character, their personality or their lifestyle or anything about who they are as a person is unrelatable to you, or that their goals make no sense, their objectives make no sense, is dehumanizing. There are those faceless pair of legs that just breathe next to you, but you don't engage with them because to you they're not human beings. They're just talking, walking bobbleheads. Acknowledging these pair of legs or these bobbleheads would eventually make you realize not everything is about you. Microaggression number 2. These characters were diverse, but that's the only thing that made them stand out. Were you expecting them to juggle while riding a unicorn? To say that a diverse cast of characters simply is there, and that's all that matters, is that they're there, or that the diversity itself didn't add much to the plot, that they only serve the purpose of being there while BIPOC, is to say that there needs to be justification for why people who are not white deserve to be featured in books, in films, in art in general. It's reinforcing the racist belief that minorities must overperform in order to receive half of the recognition their white counterparts receive. It insists that BIPOC characters cannot simply be or just exist. There needs to be a reason why they exist. There needs to be a grandiose purpose to this person's existence. Otherwise, they're just there and they make no sense. Why are they just there? I don't get it. They're just there? What? They need to reinvent the wheel. Why are they there? To save the world. Otherwise, I just don't see the point of having a black character or a Puerto Rican character or an Afro-Latina there. Like, what is the point of that? I don't get it. There's an imaginary entrance exam to the Believable Kids table. I didn't know about this. I did not know about this. But I know about it now. This harkens back to the discussion of dead genres and dead tropes. For example, vampires are so done. Aliens are so done. Fairy tales are so done. Or not fairy tales. Fairy tale retellings are so done. Dystopian is so done. But when you look at the market and what's actually on shelves, it's the same narrative with the same people at the center of it all, or on the cover, on the page, all day, every day, 24/7. There's an overwhelming amount of white leads in these white worlds with these white tropes. So no, these genres and tropes aren't dead. They were simply used ad nauseum as vehicles for the white savior narrative to prevail over others. When a BIPOC author chooses to insert their characters within these once white narratives, it's because they never saw those characters in those worlds. And BIPOC characters deserve to take up space however they see fit. A character isn't boring or passive if they simply exist within structures that have never been built to include them, or to keep them safe, or to make them feel safe, or to make them feel like they matter. This is how BIPOC authors subvert expectations and prejudices, but it's also how they reclaim something that they should have always had, like something that was really never available to them. BIPOC authors, and specifically black authors, don't owe you anything. To be even more specific, they don't owe you characters who can do 10 times what white characters can do. To call a BIPOC author's work a subpar reading experience based on that, it means you were expecting to be told why and how these characters have the right to live. Which leads me to microaggression number 1, and our final microaggression of this video. I don't know who this book is for. This proves just how BIPOC readers are less valued than white ones in terms of marketing, literacy efforts, library funding for underprivileged communities as well. Content aimed at them or that is relatable to them is often not considered worthy of being mainstream or easily accessible. It fosters this mentality that reading is indeed a privilege and only a select few deserve to be passed down and talked about. Additionally, this microaggression centers around stories only succeeding if the main character is suffering somehow. Black pain, for example, is something that both film and literature exploit. They reproduce it over and over again. Non-Black consumers continue to support these products or these films, these books. These narratives are the ones that they love to support and say, this is quality. To these audiences, Black narrators are not supposed to resonate with them unless their pain or their suffering is strictly tied to their Blackness. And not just the pain itself, but how difficult it is to live as a Black person in the United States specifically, or in Europe, if it's based in Europe. This insistence that Black characters should be racially discriminated against in order for this specific book to win awards and be nominated for awards, even if they don't win them, and to hit the list. Several of them, not just the New York Times bestselling list. Why? Like, this is... ugh. Indigenous characters also have suffering as a pivotal, crucial part of their narratives. Oftentimes, non-Indigenous audiences will only care about them if they demystify their own existence so that the white characters can view them as actual human beings. Black and Indigenous people are no strangers to revisionist history. Black stories and Indigenous stories are only worthy of engaging with if they regurgitate the lies that have been perpetuated to oppress them. If a Black or Indigenous author deviates from that revisionist history, something feels off. Queer BIPOC characters and cis female BIPOC characters face this to a lesser degree, mainly because their narratives deal with sexual and gender identity, and how that specific identity is challenged. Queer stories need to be about coming out, and how the process of coming out is actually traumatizing, or how trauma and poor self-esteem are embedded into the process of announcing to the world or announcing to whomever that you are a queer character or a queer person. Similarly, a cis teen girl must face some sort of pushback just because she's a girl. And additionally, she must also hate other teen girls because they're probably her competition for the affections of a romantic or sexual partner, usually a white boy. If a girl loves herself and has no animosity for other girls, something feels off. If a queer character isn't bullied, something feels off. You know something else that feels off? Your ability to properly critique. Everything I've just said can easily be considered worthless dribble by someone, and it will also be considered someone's daily life as a BIPOC creator. If you call yourself a reviewer, prove it. Do the work. If BIPOC readers and reviewers can do the job and do it flawlessly, so can you. Otherwise, go read Six of Crows for the 100th time. That's it for me today. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you didn't, I don't care. This is by no means me trying to be the only voice of this. I'm not saying anything new. I am not saying something that you've never seen or heard before. Maybe you've swept it under the rug and pretended that you didn't hear or see it, but this is nothing new, as I said. I would like to hear about you in the comments if there are other microaggressions that didn't make the top 5 but are definitely problematic. Don't forget to like, subscribe if you haven't already, and thank you so much for watching. I hope you have a lovely day. Stay awesome, everyone. Bye!